Welcome to another episode. What are you reading? What are you writing? A weekly video podcast features creatives, writers, and readers when we come together to talk about books. I am your host, Karen E. Osborne, author of 4 novels and counting. I am so glad you're here. I think you're going to enjoy our next guest. So I love reintroducing you to writers that you've met before, and to find out all the new things that they're doing and what's going on in their life. And that is the case today. Please meet Joseph Lewis. Again, say hey.
Hey there.
We're so glad. So he writes so many books. What number is this one that's just coming
The,
out?
the, the new one that's coming
The
out is
newest.
number 10.
Number 10.
Yeah,
Wow. And the evil one, but pronounce the the name that you also
sure,
named it.
sure. It's Navajo and it's called Black Yi. And it
Yee.
translate, yes, and the Navajo translate that directly to the evil one. See, a Yi is a spiritual deity of the Navajo. And like the Catholic Church, they have many saints. The Navajo have a whole bunch of Yi, but there is one that they refuse to talk about or even mention the name, and that's Black Yi, because they feel it, like I said, it translates right to the evil one. And when they mention it or talk about it, it's like inviting evil into their lives. And so they really shun it. And that's kind of what my book is about.
It is. It is. I had the pleasure of reading it. Thank you so much for honoring me with that. And I really loved the intricate plot, and I loved the complex characters and protagonists that you can really root for. But it was also like high octane, like your books. Go, go, go.
I try, yes.
So tell us the premise of this one.
In 2018, I published a book, or I should say, Black Rose Writing published a book called Caught in the Web. And Best Thrillers called it one of the best crime fiction books of 2018. And the story is about MS-13 coming to town to try to find out who's cutting in on their territory. And there's an ulterior motive in that book that the reader finds out about halfway through. At the end of the book, 4 gang members from MS-13 die in a house suspiciously. And police know what happened. And they fabricate a story to protect the individuals who survived that battle. Because if MS-13 found out who it was, they would be back in a vengeance to teach a lesson and make sure the lesson is learned. In Black EE, somebody said something and got back to MS-13. So the fabrication is now broken. And so that's why they're back into town.
Hmm. And MS-13 is a real cartel, right? Or is that a
Oh,
made up one you made up?
no. They're a very nasty gang. They actually originated out of Los Angeles, but it's primarily at one point was all El Salvadorians to protect the immigrants. But of course, a gang is a gang, and they bridged into sex trafficking, drugs, weapons, all the good stuff. And they run the weapons, drugs, and sex trafficking from Chicago all the way up into Door County, Wisconsin. And the it takes place in Waukesha, which is kind of a suburb 20 minutes away. It's a fairly large suburb. Um, and it does exist, Waukesha, Wisconsin. And that's where the story takes place. That's really where the setting is for most of my books.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that too. I kind of pick a place, a little part of the world and that I know well, and that's where my books get set. So do you get worried that somebody from MS-13 is going to come after you for?
I've been asked that by law enforcement,
Yeah.
FBI, the DEA, and I don't think so because I don't think they read. I guess that's terrible to say, but
No, it's not terrible. It's funny.
I, I just don't think they're going to sit down and read a 365
Read your
page book.
thriller.
Yeah,
It's a great answer, Joe. I love that answer.
but
So
we
what
do
do
know that it is in our area. In fact,
you,
within the last year, there was a gang death, and it was several members of MS-13 were arrested, and the person that died was set on fire while he was still alive, and
mm,
that's how vicious this gang is.
mm. Oh my goodness, my goodness. So you have these three sleuths
Mhm.
in your book, and tell us a little bit about them and what you like about them and about their character.
But there are three really very different guys.
Hmm.
Um, Jamie Groff is that is the name of a real life person that I worked with over the years. I met him when he is an SRO, and now he's a small town police chief. And I use him for a lot of law enforcement background. I bounce questions off him. He kind of corrects how they might act, how they might talk, and things like that. Esselman and O'Connor are really named after two childhood friends that I kind of lost track of. I describe them as I remember them. Paul
Mm,
was this kind of a fire hydrant kind of guy with bright red hair and big freckles, very bright. And Pat O'Connor is quirky, tall, skinny, and fits the undercover world because of the way he dresses, the way he acts, and he's just real
blend in.
bright. Yeah, you have to blend in, otherwise you're toast.
Yeah, yeah. Is there something in particular you like about their character, about who they are?
I think it,
Um,
I think I'm probably I really enjoy Pat O'Connor because he is so quirky. He is, he'll start a sentence and he'll stop, and then he'll restart the sentence, and then he goes. But these three guys know their way around a crime scene, and they just have this innate ability to kind of take three foreign um, things that are taking place, and they put it together and they solve a crime.
yeah. I didn't think I was going to ask you this question, but I hope it's all right.
Sure.
That I ask. So you got real bad guys, you have real, sleuths in the story. Are your plots taken, does somebody like share your story and then you turn it into a book, or is it all fabricated, or is it some combination?
It's a combination. For instance, when I wrote Caught in the Web, I was reading the newspaper, and on the front page was a story about the rise of fentanyl and heroin. Excuse me, please. Fentanyl and heroin deaths among adolescents, and I work with adolescents, for 49 years, and about 3 or 4 pages back in the same newspaper, same morning, same day,
Mhm.
was an article about MS-13 and how they're encroaching down into northern and central Virginia. And the idea came to combine the two because I knew enough about MS-13, what their actions were. And I thought this would make a pretty good story. When I wrote it, when I first started out, I did not know how it was going to end. And to be
Mm,
honest, with all of my books, I don't know how it's going to end. And the only one that I can say that is not true was fan mail. I wrote the first 3 chapters, and then the ending came to me. And so I wrote the last 2 chapters, and I just wrote up to that and through that. And when it came time for the editing, I didn't hardly change anything on those last 2 chapters. It just fit.
it
So
just
that's
fits.
the
Fan mail's a
only
great book. I love
Hey,
fan mail. That
thank
was a
you.
really
That's
good
very
story.
near to me, very near to me because, you know, I was a counselor for about 11 years. My background is counseling and psychology. And if I had it to do all over again, I never would have become an administrator. I would have stayed as a counselor. And so many of the stories that are in my books are shared with me by parents, by kids, by administrators, and things like that. So fan mail is very near and dear to me. And I wanted to kind of feature my whole fictional family. One reviewer called it a patchwork family of adopted kids. And I like that description because each of them have their strengths and all of them have some sort of baggage. They
Yeah.
just kind of work for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you said that you don't always know how the book is going to end. And
Right.
my one that's coming out in March, Justice for Emerson, which is a murder mystery. My husband was reading it for me along the way, and he said, "But Karen, like, who's the murderer?" And I said, "It's not revealed himself yet. I'm sure I'll find out, but I
Yeah.
don't know." So,
Right. You know,
so, you know,
it's funny in Black EE, I did not realize I have three separate storylines kind of going through and they kind of jam at the end
mhm.
and it worked. But I did not realize as I was writing it that it was all going to be tied together at the end. It just happened. And you know that it's a very organic process writing is.
It really is. And sometimes you can have something all plotted out and the characters just say, no,
Yes,
nope, we're going over here.
exactly.
And you better
Exactly.
catch up.
Yeah. You and I sit down to write, and I try to set aside about an hour and a half, 2 hours to write each day. And I have an idea about what I want to say, but there are times when I sit at the computer and as I'm writing, something happens with a character or something is said, overheard, or witnessed, and it takes off in a completely different direction. And by the end, I'm done with that chapter. It surprised the heck out of me.
Absolutely. We're so surprised. So you mentioned, and maybe you've answered this already, just let me, just tell me that. But I'm very intrigued with how you get the authenticity. Your books have such great authenticity in the crime solving and the crime. I recommended them to a friend of mine who's a police detective and who helps me when with some of my scenes. And he
Hmm.
said, really, he said, this is so spot on. So,
Wow.
how does your research? How do you do your research, or do you wait till you're finished and then you give it to your friend to see if you're right? Or tell us a little bit about that authenticity process.
Back when I was a kid, I used to read Louis L'Amour. And if he says that there's a tree and a rock in a specific place, you can bet that the tree and the rock are right there because he researched it, his family helped him with the research and things like that. And then I started reading a guy by the name of Tony Hillerman. And
Yeah.
Tony, he writes, he's deceased now, but he wrote really a very simple mystery. But what I really liked about it was the infusion of Navajo culture, mysticism, spirituality. And that's what I brought into my books. And so when I start writing, there are certain words and phrases that, especially like in fan mail, when the grandfather comes back and he's telling people in Navajo, go get this person, go get that person. So I reached out to the Navajo Museum, Robert Johnston, and a really nice lady by the name of Brenda Hatt, who coached me, worked with me on the pronunciation, on the meanings and the symbolism and things like that. And so that's one side. On the other side, I'm blessed because I'm in education. I work hand in hand with SROs, which is it's a security officer, sheriff department generally, or a police
Mm-hmm.
department, and they are very patient with me, explaining guns, bullets, how they fire, what happens if it's close range, things like that. What happens if it's long distance? And then you and I know a guy by the name of Dave Rabin,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a professional marksman with a rifle. he's won all sorts of awards. So he has helped me. So I get my research, I try to be exacting. And in Waukesha, because I live there, and the high school that my boys go to is Waukesha North, where I used to teach and coach. So it was very easy for me to set them in that particular setting, especially they're all athletes of some sort, or bandos or in choir. And those are all the things that I was interested in, and I used to coach. So it was very normal to be able to build my fictional world based in reality.
Based in reality. That's a great description of it. A fictional world based in reality. That's what we try to do. So novel number 10 is when is it coming out?
It comes out January 2nd, but it is available for pre-order right now.
Right now. So January
Yeah.
2nd. So when is number 11 coming?
I'm actually working on it. Um, I'm about 16,000 words into it. I'm undecided on the title. Um, and it deals with my daughter is a social worker, and her her clientele are the homeless population in Greensboro. And then I started thinking about what would happen with this vulnerable population if someone decides to start killing them randomly.
Oh my
And
gosh.
how would people react? What would happen, especially in her life, because she's very protective of these people? So I received a whole coursework of social work and the homeless population as I'm crafting this particular novel. Um, and that's kind of what it's going to deal with. But as always, I try to have a twist or two or 19 as the reader reads the book, especially towards the end.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds really, really good. In my upcoming novel that's coming out in March, um, my main character is the CEO of a not-for-profit that works with the unhoused and hungry.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, yeah, but no one's shooting them down or anything.
Oh, that's good.
We have a different plot going, so
Okay.
so that's really good. So the last time we spoke, you shared with us that Lord of the Flies by William Golden and two Stephen King books, The Stand and On Writing. Those were
Mhm.
two books that you told me. I went back and I watched our interview that had such a big impact on you. And then you also recommended author Mark Dawson and James Patterson's memoir, James Patterson,
Yeah,
which
lovely book.
because you recommended it, I read it. It
Oh,
was really good. It was very, very good. It was very insightful, but it was also really entertaining and it was
yes,
good.
yes.
So can you add any new books, any other books to our
I
list?
I've been reading some of my own, rereading some of those to kind of get me back up current with some of my characters and setting and stuff. But I'm also reading C.J. Box's Stormwatch. Um, C.J. Box is an author that resides in Wyoming, where I used to live for 3 years. And his main character is a guy by the name of Joe Pickett, who's a ranger, a park ranger. And he has a large territory up in the north of Wyoming, setting in the Bighorn Mountains. And he writes a really interesting, intricate mystery. And I'm really enjoying that one.
Oh, excellent. And I can recommend to you if you like those kind of books. Do you know Cam Torrens?
Oh,
Have you also?
yeah.
Yeah, he's got some great books
Yes.
of rescue and mystery, and yeah, he's
What,
great.
what's what, what's nice about that is Cam in real life is a search and rescue guy.
Yeah.
And his main character is a search and rescue guy. And I've been very fortunate that Cam will actually let me do a beta read and for in exchange for a blurb or a review. And
Mhm.
that's been fun. Gary Gerlacher, The Last
Yes.
Patient. is another one who's a surgeon in real life, and his character is a doc, and that's the nickname that he goes by. Two, if your readers are looking for an author besides you and me, they have to check out Cam Torrens and Gary Gerlacher. They are phenomenal. And then there's a lady by the name of Joan Livingston who I really like. She's more cozy mystery, but her
Mm.
setting, you can see it, you can feel it, you can smell it. It takes place in the hill country of Western Massachusetts, and she's outstanding. She's a former journalist, and so her word choice is very succinct, very compact. She
Mm.
strips it down, and the when you read it, it goes in a hurry, and it doesn't stop until you're at the end.
Wow, that sounds good. That sounds excellent. So, how can that audience who want to read everything that you have written, they want to go back, like you're rereading, they want to go back and get all your books, including this new one that's coming out. How can they find you? You also have a wonderful blog that you
Thank
do.
you.
So, how can they be in touch and find you?
My website is really easy to find. It's www.jrlewisauthor.com. And on that website, you're going to find all of my books, descriptions, and in a buy link. And please click the buy link. And then the other tabs, I have two different blogs that I write. One is I consider to be more thoughtful, more inspirational. And then the other one is an author blog where I interview different authors or I talk about my own writing or writing in general. And I give tips to the reader and to the writer about what they can do with their stories. So
Yeah,
it's a fun website.
I would agree. So please go to, and don't forget, go to Joe Lewis's, and what's that middle initial? J.R.
J.R. Lewis author, and Lewis is
J.R. Lewis.
Lewis.
Yes. So please go find him, click on that buy button, follow him, and please, on the contact page, tell him that you met him on What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing?
That
Until
would be
next
fun.
week, everybody. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, thank you, Karen, for having me. I so appreciate it. I love talking about books and writing, and you're a wonderful host, so thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody.
Goodbye.